Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's licensing board. We're just having to take a 15-minute break, waiting for the legal officer to arrive who's been caught in traffic. So we're taking a 15-minute break before we start. Thank you. Welcome everyone to today's meeting of the Licensing Board. Some housekeeping. If the fire alarm is activated, please take the stairs down to the reception area and out of the building to the green in Hawley Square, which is the assembly point. Please do not use the lifts. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the council offices. Filming of the meeting. I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? No. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and that they are not used to make or receive phone calls whilst this meeting is in progress. Moving on to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Manners. Are there any other apologies for absence? No, so it's just Councillor Manners there. Moving to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Item 3, please can I have a member propose and another to second that the minutes of the Licensing Board meeting held on the 19th of March 2024 be approved as a correct record. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Wright, thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Ara. Moving on to agenda item 4.
Take a vote.
Yeah, do members approve? Agree. Thank you. Item 4, introduction of animal welfare policy. Please can I ask Miss Alison Stocker, Senior Licensing Officer, to present the report. Alison.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Before we start, I would just like to introduce Gemma Martin. Gemma Martin is the Thanet Licensing Police Officer. We're working really closely together. So anything policey, then obviously have a word with Gemma and she'll be able to hopefully help you. So the introduction of the animal welfare policy. So as per my report, you will see at present there is no animal welfare policy in place. This policy will bring together animal activities, DWA, which is dangerous wild animals, and zoos. This policy will also ensure compliance with all the relevant legislation and will work in tandem with the licensing officer's enforcement policy. Thank you.
I read it last night. It's quite interesting actually, and I can't believe how much you've got to cover as quite a small team. And I'd like to join you on the zoo visits actually. although they might keep me. But I was interested in the dog breeding section because I know there's quite a gap, a loophole that is exploited. So my understanding is that if you own a dog, and I own a dog, she's been done so she won't be having babies, as long as I don't, there's no exchange of money, then that doesn't breach the law. But if I breed my dog and then charge money, then that does breach the law because I haven't got a licence.
So this is very, very difficult. Like you say, there is a loophole, massive loophole within the legislation. There is a £1,000 threshold, which anybody could basically say, I've given my dogs away for free. I have no jurisdiction to be allowed to go into private property unless I get a warrant, and to get a warrant under something that may or may not be happen is not going to happen. So yes, I totally understand where you're coming from. Unfortunately, I've got to work with what I've been given. So yeah.
The other thing is, I really do appreciate the new signs on the scrap lorries because I've started looking for them. Now I know they're there. Some of them are just attached to the back, but on all wobbly. And I look for the taxi ones. So as soon as you know what you're looking for, you start seeing them or not seeing them, as the case may be. But How do we know, and I've got a dog that I do board occasionally, how do residents know, or people that might use services know that particular property or organisation has the appropriate licence?
Yeah, so we have a list on the TDC webpage, which gives us a list of all the boarders, breeders, pet shops, horse establishments, and animal activities. So they're all on the webpage. I do keep a close eye on social media, and people are now being more educated in the fact that to look onto the TDC website. We also advertise. When we speak to the new application, we do say to people to ensure that when they advertise, they do say that they are licensed with a local authority. Not necessarily give them their number, but say that they are licensed and direct them to the webpage, because a lot of people don't understand, don't get it, and just put the dogs in anywhere. And until we get complaints about those people, we can't do anything about it.
Do you think there's any mileage in actually, and now we've got this policy of actually putting some basic information out onto the information that goes to residents who have signed up?
I can certainly think about it. I mean, I have written to all the vets asking if they have regular customers come in with puppies, that we need to know about them. But yeah, that was something that we could definitely think about. I mean, we've got a big splash on our TDC webpage, and we do keep an eye on social media, and we do write to all those people that are boarding. And this year so far we've had 3 people apply that hadn't been, so we're working. Like I say, we're a small team, there's only 2 of us, so it is difficult. Yeah.
Any other questions from members? No. Are members happy to agree to the introduction of the new policy? Can I have a proposer? Councillor Scobie, and the seconder, Councillor Wing. Do members agree? Thank you. Agenda item 5, pavement licensing, June 2024. Please can I ask Miss Alison Brock, Technical Support Manager, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. Back in 2020, during the COVID era, we were given pavement licensing by the government under the Business and Planning Act. At that time, it used to belong to KCC, but they thought during COVID it was easier for local authorities to deal with it. The fee at the time was £100, and that was just for a year's licence, and then they had to renew every year. I knew this would happen, and the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act has decided to give it to local authorities as a permanent thing now, so no longer done by KCC, it's all been handed over to us. One good thing with it is we now have enforcement powers, which we didn't have previously when it was under the Business and Planning Act, but we now have the enforcement powers for it. So, under the new Levelling Up, they've said we can increase our fees up to £500, and we can also increase the licence for 2 years rather than a year. So we currently obviously do it for £100 just for a year. So this report is to ask you if you would like to increase that £100 and also make the licence a 2-year licence rather than a 1-year licence. As you can see on Annex A of the report, Dover have changed theirs. Their new application is now £400 and their renewal is £200, and they've put the licence for 2 years. Quite a few other authorities I looked at hadn't even updated their websites yet, so we don't know what they're doing. Maidstone do a 1-year one, and their 2-year one is £430, and their 2-year renewal is £280. So I'd just like to ask you to make a recommendation as to whether we increase our fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. The recommendation is for the board to consider the contents of the report to agree to one of the 2 options laid out, for the fee to remain the same, to be £100 for both new and renewal of licences, and the length of the licence will increase to 2 years. Or alternatively, the board agrees to a fee increase of their choice for both new and renewal of licences, with the length of the licence to be increased to 2 years. Members, any comments?
Yes, I think actually things are bad enough in this catering sector as it is. I think actually 2 years would be sensible, because obviously it's less paperwork, but I would say a small increase would be okay, but I was thinking more 150 a year rather than, you know, a 400 or whatever. So but that was all really.
Thank you. Councillor Ara.
Yeah, I agree with Jim. I think, I would rather it remain the same amount rather than increasing, but if we do, maybe a very small amount, because businesses are already suffering, so they won't be able to afford any, extra amount to pay. Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to disagree. We have in Birchington we have 3 particular establishments that are now taking over the entire pavement, and people are having to go out into the road. It is only 1 or 2, but I think that, and they are quite rude because they also use the pavement as a car park. Because they don't have to pay, otherwise they have to pay, and they don't intend to. And I think to put the fee up would be a deterrent.
Councillor Owen Hughes.
I think that matter is completely different to what we're talking about here. If they're taking over the pavement, that's a matter of enforcement. Somebody should go and speak to them about it. It's nothing to do with how much they're paying to put their furniture out onto the pavement. We've had such a rough time down here with the pandemic that businesses are struggling. We can all name 3 or 4 eating establishments that have opened up and then 18 months later they're closed down. We surely need to help these businesses. We're supposed to be a seaside town. Tourists come. I think we should help them as much as we can.
Councillor Scobie.
Thank you, yeah. Apologies first of all. I've just got back from a week cruising, had a wonderful time, but when I got back my laptop had discharged and I had to wait for it to charge before I could read it. So can I clarify, it's £200 at the moment for 2 years? Yep.
Oh, in theory, yes, because our current licence only runs for a year, so they pay £100 at the beginning of that, and then they have to pay £100 to renew it. So in theory, for 2 years, it is £200, yeah.
But you're proposing to raise it to 350. Is that just for the initial period, or for the initial application, or is that an annual?
I've just said it's up to you, but the Act...
Was there a suggestion of 350? Sorry, I thought I'd read that.
The Act allows it to be up to 500.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it should probably be 250 for an initial application, because that covers 2 years, and say 150 for a renewal, which again, it's for another 2 years. Okay. This only applies on highway land. Yeah. If the land belongs to the premises, they don't have to apply to us for a licence. So you've got, say along Northdown Road, you've got a few premises along there where they've got slightly different pavement outside, tiles. Maybe tiles or something, and that's because it belongs to the premises. So they don't have to apply for a licence. It's purely only ones that are on highway land. And if they have A-boards or any other type of furniture, they've still got to get a licence from KCC. We don't licence A-boards, the advertising. Yeah. That has to come from KCC.
Thank you. So I would be happy with 250, did you say, initial licence, and then every 2 years after that 150, so that would be £75 a year. That seems fair. Thank you.
Councillor Wright, I think you wanted to come back on.
Yeah, I do. When I said the ones that the people that I would be aiming at, those who are using the highway, there are quite a lot. Most of them have got a forecourt, but it's when they park on the highway. That's when I think that there should be some way of penalising them to stop them doing it, because the enforcement come, they take them down, 2 days later they put them back. Ha ha ha. So there must be some way to stop it.
What, you mean tables and chairs?
Yeah. No, well, tables and chairs and the hoardings and the sandwich boards.
Well, that's why now we have the enforcement powers
Yeah.
under this Act, so that's what Ali's team will be able to deal with. Previously it was KCC, so obviously it was a lot more difficult to get a KCC officer down
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
go around and deal with it. But now this has given us the enforcement powers where Ali can actually serve notices on them, and if they don't comply with the notice, we can actually take the furniture away. And then until they pay up, we don't give it back.
I see where you're coming from. I apologise.
Councillor Wing?
I mean, I'm quite happy, I think, with that. And I think we need a bit more training at some point on the ins and outs of this, because my understanding is that on top of this, if the piece of land is actually TDC land, then estates obviously levy a cost on that. And that's where the big costs can come in for a business.
Yeah, it can be. Estates do things slightly differently. So this is purely highway land, mainly KCC land. If it belongs to TDC, then if the concession or whatever happens to be there, like the ones along the prom and that, they've got their concession with estates or land and property, they have to apply to them for the pavement licence because they're taking out, it's so confusing, 3G.
I mean, there are some relevant issues that I know they're not relevant to the funding here, but I'm using this as an opportunity to try and re-educate myself. So I think, and it says quite clearly in here that there has to be 2 metres. If it's tight, then that can go down to 1.5 metres, as long as a wheelchair-bound person and an able-bodied person can pass each other. That certainly isn't happening in parts of Ramsgate in the summer. So have we actually thought, and I'm going totally off, but it's my opportunity to raise an issue that is concerning. Have we thought about actually marking out the area so that we can all be clear, the business, visitors and councillors and residents can be clear about where people with a licence should be putting their tables and chairs, because they do encroach over. It's natural when you're sitting down to encroach.
It's probably something we can look into, but I don't know. Obviously, we'd have to discuss that with KCC because marking the pavement would be there, whether they'd agree to that or not. As soon as you've decided after this meeting, I've got a letter ready to put the new fees in. We'll be sending it out to every licensed premises, regardless of whether we think they've got pavement. We're just going to send it to everybody so that they all know they've got to apply for a licence if they've got tables and chairs outside.
Just following on, am I right in thinking that this levy helps fund more staff for you to go and enforce? So...
Whether we'll actually get any more staff or not is a thingammy, but obviously the initial application is a lot of work because you've got all the paperwork coming in that you have to check. The enforcement team probably have to go out and check, that the measurements are correct, it's all there, and also for them to, enforce the act in the long run.
The last bit of clarity I want around the tables and chairs licence. So if I run a business and I've got a licence for a table and chair licence for 10 tables and chairs outside my restaurant, but my alcohol licence is until 11 o'clock in the evening. If at that point, once we hit 11 o'clock, then there should be no drinking outside that. It should all be back in the premises. So again, I think there's a whole deal of the information's there, but it's very difficult to find. So I was really pleased at the licensing training where we move into a system where I can check any planning application, that residents can go in and see, well, the pub down the road from me was open till 1 a.m. I need to check whether that's what they should be doing or not. So I was really glad that we're working to move that forward as well, because I think if businesses know, locals know what their licences are for tables and alcohol, then those businesses that don't behave well are more likely to tighten up.
And also with, obviously, like you say, with them taking drink outside, again, the Business and Planning Act allowed all licensed premises who only had on sales to have off sales to be able to cover those pavement licences. And that's still carrying on till March 25. And that's another thing that we think they'll probably end up changing, and they'll probably make it that even if you've only got on sales, you'll be able to have off sales just as a matter of fact. But we won't know that until sometime next year. So,
Councillor Huxley?
I agree with Councillor Scobie. I think it should be £250 for a new licence and £150 for a renewal. I think that's, listening to the board, I think that's a sort of halfway house. I think we need to catch up with the rest of Kent. A lot of other councils have higher fees. So I think this is a good compromise. So I propose that. 250, 150. Thank you.
Councillor Hara? £50 for renewal and £250 for the grant over 2 years. Is the board happy with that? Yeah. Can I have a proposer?
I think Councillor Huxley has proposed.
Councillor, and a seconder, Councillor Hara. Yeah, thank you.
All members agree, yeah.
Okay. Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5, exclusion of public and press. Please can I have a member propose and another to second that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for agenda item 7 as it contains exempt information as defined in paragraphs 2 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Wing, and seconder Councillor Mackinson. Do members agree? Could the chamber be cleared of the press and public, please? That was quick.
Do you want to make an announcement and say we're ending the live stream now?
Yeah, we'll be ending the live stream now for item 7.